Good morning. Thank you for joining me in this morning mindfulness practice. Have you been practicing the state of being that you want to be in? Practicing realizing that the universe reflects back to you what you are, what you've been thinking and doing, rather than what you say you want. The universe speaks the language of the subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind is all about emotion, your dominant emotional patterns, the feelings that you have, the feelings of love and joy and respect, success. When you feel that state of being, that you already are that, your subconscious mind looks for the evidence. The universe attracts to you everything that matches the success, the love, the joy, the happiness, whatever it is that you desire. You must use your imagination, and not against yourself, but for what you want. So often, as human beings, there's a part of us that is always looking for threats in the environment. What could go wrong? If we train our minds to look for what's good, for what's going well, for what's right, and practice being in the habit of thinking the universe always has my back, the universe is always taking care of me, I am safe, everything is happening for my greater good. Sometimes you feel like what's going on is disastrous or horrible or going to lead to a bad outcome. If you believe that everything is happening for your good, what's not meant for you is swept away. There are times where you learn lessons. There are times where you go through challenges to be strengthened for the next level, growing to that better version of yourself. You are an eternal spirit living in a physical body. You're using your physical body to make changes, to take action, to do the work that needs to be done in order for you to create what you really want. You can use your beautiful imagination to get a picture in your mind of what you desire. But unless you attach feeling and emotion to it, pretending in your mind that you already have it, and then letting go of the outcome, letting go of how it's going to happen, and letting go of it has to be a certain way, because the universe can actually bring you something even better. Neville Goddard talks about using your imagination, and at times it feels like nothing's changing, or you might feel like you're going backwards. You must really want to change, really want something better, and then allow it to unfold. So in Neville Goddard's Awakened Imagination, he talks about, I'm going to read part of Sealed Instructions. He says, man lives by committing himself to invisible states, by fusing his imagination with what he knows to be other than himself, And in this union, he experiences the results of that fusion. No one can lose what he has save by detachment from the state where the things experienced have their natural life. You must imagine yourself right into the state of your fulfilled desire. Neville Goddard was living in New York City in 1933, and he approached his mentor Abdullah with a problem. And Abdullah asked him, "What do you want?" Neville Goddard said, "I told him I would like to spend the winter in Barbados, but that I was broke. I literally did not have a nickel." Abdullah said, "If you will imagine yourself to be in Barbados, thinking and viewing the world from that state of consciousness instead of thinking of Barbados, you will spend the winter there. You must not concern yourself with the ways and means of getting there, for the state of consciousness of already being in Barbados, if occupied by imagination, will devise the means best suited to realize itself. You must imagine yourself right into the state of your fulfilled desire," Abdullah told Neville Goddard, "and fall asleep viewing the world from Barbados. The world which we describe from observation must be described as we describe it relative to ourselves. Our imagination connects us with the state desired, but we must use imagination masterfully, not as an onlooker thinking of the end, but as a partaker thinking from the end. We must actually be there in imagination. If we do this, our subjective experience will be realized objectively." Now, if you recall, I've been talking about the conscious mind as being subjective, and you are the cause and the effect of your experience. Your subconscious mind is objective. It doesn't decide if something is good or bad. It just matches how you've been thinking and feeling, what state you've been in. So if we consciously think about what we want, our subjective experience will be realized objectively. It will just happen naturally. It will just show up in reality. It will be our real experience when we get emotionally involved and then let go of how. Abdullah says this is not mere fancy, but a truth you can prove by experience. Abdullah's appeal to enter into the wish fulfilled was the secret of thinking from the end. Every state is already there as mere possibility. It's mere possibility as long as you think of it, but it is overpoweringly real when you think from it. So Neville Goddard says, "I began right there and then fixing my thoughts beyond the limits of sense, beyond that aspect to which my present state gave being, towards the feeling of already being in Barbados and viewing the world from that standpoint." He emphasized the importance of the state from which man views the world as he falls asleep. All prophets claim that the voice of God is chiefly heard by man in dreams. In fact, in Job 33:15-16, "In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon men, In slumberings upon the bed, then he openeth the ears of men and sealeth their instructions. Neville says, that night and for several nights thereafter, I fell asleep in the assumption that I was in my father's house in Barbados. Within a month, I received a letter from my brother saying that he had a strong desire to have the family together at Christmas and asking me to use the enclosed steamship ticket for Barbados. I sailed 2 days after I received my brother's letter and spent a wonderful winter in Barbados. This experience has convinced me that man can be anything he pleases if he will make the conception habitual and think from the end. It has also shown me that I can no longer excuse myself by placing the blame on the world of external things, and that my good and evil have no dependency except from myself, that it depends on the state from which I view the world, how things present themselves. Man who is free in his choice acts from conceptions which he freely, though not always wisely, chooses. All conceivable states are awaiting our choice and occupancy, but no amount of rationalizing will of itself yield us a state of consciousness which is the only thing worth having. The imaginative image is the only thing to seek. The ultimate purpose of imagination is to create in us the spirit of Jesus, which is continual forgiveness of sin, continual identification of mankind with his ideal. Only by identifying ourselves with our aim can we forgive ourselves for having missed it. All else is labor in vain. On this path to whatever place or state we convey our imagination to that place or state, we will physically gravitate. Neville Goddard quite often quotes the Bible, and here he talks from John 14:2. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would not have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, ye may be also. By sleeping in my Father's house in my imagination, as though I slept there in the flesh, I fused my imagination with that state and was compelled to experience that state also in the flesh. So vivid was this state to me that I could have seen in my Father's house had any sensitive entered the room where in imagination I was sleeping. A man can be seen where in his imagination he is, for a man must be where his imagination is, for his imagination is himself. Neville says, this I know from experience, for I've been seen by a few to whom I desired to be seen when physically I was hundreds of miles away. Think about how that applies in your life. When you think about a loved one, you bring them into your imagination, into your mind so vividly that they could be sitting at your kitchen table having a conversation with you when they might be on the other side of the world. Your imagination is that powerful. Think of times where you were at work and you were dreaming of a vacation. And people might say, quit daydreaming and pay attention to reality, what's going on here and now. Well, if we only pay attention to what's going on around us, current circumstances, current conditions have come about because of people's thinking and talking and expectation. If you use your imagination and think and feel and expect what you truly desire, ideas come to you. And as you take action on those ideas, as you have faith that this is developing for you, you can live in that beautiful state of whatever it is you prefer. You have to decide what you really want and then spend time creating it in your imagination, spending time in the state of already being there. So often we use our imagination against ourselves, but you can practice this easily by just expecting a parking spot in front of the doctor's office, expecting a close parking spot when you go to the mall, and then expand it. What kind of vacation would you love? Imagine you're already in the sunny destination. You're already golfing on the beautiful courses. You're already there in your imagination, and you know it, you feel it. You get into that state of being, and it's only a matter of time before that becomes your reality. Neville Goddard says, I, by the intensity of my imagination and feeling, imagining and feeling myself to be in Barbados instead of merely thinking of Barbados, had spanned the vast Atlantic to influence my brother into desiring my presence to complete the family circle at Christmas. Thinking from the end, from the feeling of my wish fulfilled, was the source of everything that happened as outer cause, such as my brother's impulse to send me a steamship ticket, and it was also the cause of everything that appeared as results. He was open to receive. He practiced. He went to sleep every night pretending that he was sleeping in his father's house in Barbados, and that's what happened. He ended up in Barbados celebrating Christmas with the family. The ticket came from his brother. He didn't have to worry about how much it cost. I don't have enough money saved. I don't know how I'm going to get there. The ticket appeared for him to take a steamship across the ocean and be with his family, what he imagined himself to be. Neville Goddard says, determined imagination thinking from the end is the beginning of all miracles. I would like to give you an immense belief in miracles, but a miracle is only the name given by those who have no knowledge of the power and function of imagination to the works of imagination. Imagining oneself into the feeling of the wish fulfilled is the means by which a new state is entered. This gives a state the quality of isness. That which is manifested. That which has been or shall be is unmanifested but not dead. The future must become the present in the imagination of the one who would wisely and consciously create circumstances. So decide what circumstances, what conditions, what outcome, what result do you want? And then imagine yourself there. How would you be feeling? The state of being is already there. You must get into the state of being there. You are that. Practice being in that state. Neville Goddard also says the future must become the present in the imagination of the one who would wisely and consciously create circumstances. We must translate vision into being, thinking of into thinking from. Imagination must center itself in some state and view the world from that state. Thinking from the end is an intense perception of the world of fulfilled desire. Thinking from the state desired is creative living. Ignorance of this ability to think from the end is bondage. I think so many people in the world live in bondage because they believe that what's happening is all there is, and they don't realize that we create our future state in the present. But so often people get wound up in thinking of the past. And as you focus on the past and get into the state of being in the past, feeling the emotions of what happened in the past, you drag that into the future. The future becomes the past when you focus on it, when you get into that state of being. So be careful of where you direct your imagination. The past is past. Let it go. The future is coming. And as you imagine yourself in that beautiful state of being, then you let go of that and focus on being in the state of the health, happiness, love, joy, success. Be in that state so that you attract everything necessary for that beautiful picture to unfold. Neville says, once man accepts thinking from the end as a creative principle in which he can cooperate, then he is redeemed from the absurdity of ever attempting to achieve his objective by merely thinking of it. Construct all ends according to the pattern of fulfilled desire. The whole of life is just the appeasement of hunger, and the infinite states of consciousness from which a man can view the world are purely a means of satisfying that hunger. The principle upon which each state is organized is some form of hunger to lift the passion for self-gratification to ever higher and higher levels of experience. Desire is the mainspring of the mental machinery. It is a blessed thing. It is a right and natural craving, which has a state of consciousness as its right and natural satisfaction. It is necessary to have an aim in life. Without an aim, we drift. In defining your aim, you must truly want it. It is a lack of passion. It is a lack of this passionate direction to life that makes mankind fail in the accomplishment. Neville says the spanning of the bridge between desire, thinking of, and satisfaction, thinking from, is all important. We must move mentally from thinking of the end to thinking from the end. This, your reasoning mind, your logical mind, can never do. By its nature, it is restricted to the evidence of the senses. But imagination, having no such limitation, can move to thinking from the end. Desire exists to be gratified in the activity of imagination. Through imagination, man escapes from the limitation of the senses and the bondage of reason. There is no stopping the man who can think from the end. Nothing can stop him. He creates the means and grows his way out of limitation into ever greater and greater mansions of the Lord. It does not matter what he has been or what he is. All that matters is, what does he want? He knows that the world is a manifestation of the mental activity which goes on within himself, so he strives to determine and control the ends from which he thinks. In his imagination, he dwells in the end, confident that he shall dwell there in the flesh also. He puts his whole trust in the feeling of the wish fulfilled and lives by committing himself to that state, for the art of fortune is to tempt him to do so. Knowing that every desire is ripe, to him who knows how to think from the end, he is indifferent to mere reasonable probability and confident that through continuous imagination, his assumptions will harden into fact. Life is a controllable thing. You can experience what you please once you realize that you are the Son of God. You are created in the image of God, and that you are what you are by virtue of the state of consciousness from which you think and view the world. In your imagination, what mansions would you live in your mind? The mansions in the kingdom of heaven. What gets you imagining the most beautiful, loving, joyful life that you could live? Be in that state of being. Attract everything necessary to live your best life. Happy, healthy, abundantly blessed in every area. Decide what you want. Think about it, write about it, get into that state that it already is. Practice this over the weekend. Create a wonderful day. I'll see you back here Monday morning at 7. Thank you.